Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Advanced Excel Charts for Finance Professionals workshop. My name is Zachary Bailey, and I get the honor of being your host for today and tomorrow. We've got an action-packed agenda for today and tomorrow, so I hope you're excited and ready to learn. I know I am. I've got my Excel workbooks open. I've got my I Love Spreadsheets t-shirt on here, and I'm ready to get in touch with my inner Excel nerd. And as a digital marketing specialist here at Vena, I'm normally kind of a behind the scenes guy. So to have this opportunity to connect with so many talented finance professionals and a lot of our amazing Vena customers, it's truly an exciting kind of opportunity for me. So we'll start the workshops in just a few minutes, but before we do, just want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items here. So first off, if you're interested in earning a CPE or CPD credit for the workshops today, please make sure you answer the 3 polling questions that we'll have at the end of the session today. And also ensure that you're attending these workshops for at least 50 minutes per day. So again, we'll have those 3 CPE and CPD polling questions at the end of today's session. Second little bit of housekeeping. If you would like to follow along with these workshops, please make sure you have your Excel workbooks open. You can find the 2 Excel workbooks in the emails we sent out prior to the event, but if you forgot to download them, no worries. You can. We've got the links to download in the chat right there for the 2 workbooks. And final bit of housekeeping here. As this is a live and interactive session, we encourage you to ask questions. So as Chandoo is going through the workshops, if you have any questions, any comments, please use the Zoom chat to ask any questions you'll have, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go through the workshops. So with those housekeeping items out of the way, it is my pleasure to introduce our teacher for these workshops, Chandoo. So for those of you who don't know, Chandoo, I think, is more passionate about data analytics and visualization than just about anyone I know. So if you're somebody who's always looking to improve your Excel skills, improve your Power BI skills, I highly recommend you check out his YouTube channel. He posts awesome videos every single week. They're not only very educational, but also very entertaining. So if you want to grow your skills, get a few laughs in, definitely recommend checking out his YouTube channel and checking him out at chandoo.org. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Chandoo to get us started.
Thank you, Zach, and a very warm and happy welcome to all of you. Today, we are going to look at some Excel charts that you could use in the finance domain, especially when you are comparing things, and then we will continue the discussion tomorrow. So let me jump into my Excel workbook, the link for which has been shared in the chat window already. But in case you have some difficulty obtaining the file, don't worry, because all of these are made up numbers and the data is fairly simple when we get started. So, you don't even need anything. You just, as long as you have Excel, we will make up you can make up some numbers and follow along. So let me open my screen share and just let me know if the thing is working all right. And then do you see my Excel? Yeah.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Okay. Cool. All right. So this is the blank data file. I already have a completed workbook as well, but there would be a third workbook, which I will share with you when we finish with the workshop tomorrow, because during the course, I might actually end up doing something completely different depending on the questions or, what happens during the day. To start off, we will not even use any of these numbers. Instead, we are gonna make something very simple for our first type of chart. This one, I call it as a thermometer chart. And this is a very, very simple chart, but it is not something that you will find in the menus anywhere. So it will teach you a little bit about how Excel charts behave, what happens when you try to create something that doesn't exist, what is the mindset that you need, and then that will help us take it into the next steps. So one of the most common things that we do in the business world is, especially when it comes to data visualization and preparing charts, is the purpose of the chart would be to compare things. So I want to compare A with B, product A with product B, or department A with the department B, or last year with this year, whatever may be the case. Comparison is one of the main intents when it comes to data visualization. Just as you have comparison, you also have other things. Sometimes you may want to understand what is the trend. Sometimes you want to understand which of these items is too different from rest and those kind of things. But comparison is by far one of the most done things in business world. And when you want to compare things, thermometer chart is a very powerful way to do this. So we will make a thermometer chart here, and then we will go into the process of how that works and what happens and all of that. A simple use case for thermometer chart is you want to compare two values. These could be a budget and an actual value, or a actual versus target value, or budget versus forecast, one of those kind of things. So we'll just put two words: budget, actual. But if you don't work in the finance domain, then you could kind of swap these for any other words that you are more familiar with. It doesn't really matter. We'll say the budget is $100 and the actual is $75. Again, fairly simple, straightforward stuff. And what we want to do is we want to create a picture here that looks like a thermometer. Now, in case you haven't seen a thermometer in a while, I'm just going to pull up an image of a thermometer. So this is a picture that we're trying to create, something like that. The idea is, if it kind of goes all the way to the full, then that means we have spent all the $100. But if it is going 3/4 of the way, then that means we have only spent 3/4. So in this case, $75. So really what I want is I want a picture like this for my data, so that we could kind of visually tell how much of the budget has been spent and how much is remaining, all in one view. So that's the chart that we will create. So we'll start off with, if we go and see insert, there is no thermometer chart option for us, but we do have many charts that look close enough. So a good close enough chart is a column chart, like you see here. This is basically kind of, it takes a lot of imagination to think of this chart as that picture, but we could hypothetically imagine that, all the basic ingredients are there. They're just not in the right places or right colors or right sizes, but they're there. So this is the one. Now, whenever you create a chart in Excel, one of the biggest things that you can immediately understand based on the coloring of them is, here both budget and actual are in the same color. This right away tells me as a creator that Excel is thinking they are of the same type of values, because usually the color by default that is applied by Excel, it will automatically either show 2 or 3 colors if it thinks the values are different. But if the values are same from Excel point of view, then Excel will say, these are same, I'm going to color them same. Again, this might sound abstract, so I'm going to use this data here. You will understand quickly what I mean by that. If I select something else and insert a column chart, you notice that here it has got 2 colors, but each color is going all the way. So all the blue bars are target values and all the orange bars or orange columns are the sales values. So 2 colors here, whereas our thermometer has only 1 color. Now we know that even though Excel is thinking that everything is same, from our point of view, we do know that budget and actual are 2 different things. So they need to be treated separately. So one quick way to do this is, instead of deleting and rearranging the data, you can select the chart, you can go to chart design, and from there is an option called switch row column. Okay. I don't know if you have ever clicked on this, but what this will do is it will tell Excel that, this data that I gave you, you somehow mistreated it. Can you flip it around and show me how that would look like? So if I click on that once, now Excel will have 2 colors, 1 value. So it's not even going to label them anymore. It's just leaving that there, but it is showing me 2 different things. The more technical way of understanding this is, Excel now thinks there are 2 different series in the chart. One is budget series and another is actual series. Okay, this is all good. Now, the next step that we want to do is we want to turn this picture into that kind of a graph, a thermometer graph. So the first obvious thing is we got two bars here. We would like to take the orange bar and then put it right in front of the blue one, kind of overlap them so that they sit right on top of one another. This is my thermometer here. If you can imagine, this is actually one image. But if we can imagine, we could think of this as actually two images. One is the outer container of thermometer and the other is the inner portion of the value that is going up and down. And they're kind of overlapped so that we get this picture. So that's how we could imagine. So we will do that. We will select either one of these. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Select one of these and you want to go to the format options. Again, you can right click and go to format, but my favorite shortcut when you want to deal with these kind of things is pressing Control-1. Control-1 is a universal format shortcut in Excel. All it does is it will format the item that you currently picked. So right in this case, we have selected a chart data series. So Control-1 will open the format data series options. But if I select a cell, Control-1 will open the format cells box. So it is the same shortcut, but depending on what you picked, it will open the relevant format option. So a very easy to remember shortcut, but a very powerful time-saving one, because most of the time when you're making graphs, you will also spend quite a bit of time formatting them. So having at least one or two shortcuts in that space kind of speeds up the process. So we go to the format, and here we notice that there is an option called series overlap. So this is a slider. If I slide it all the way here, I'll get more white space between the columns. If I slide it all the way to that end, the columns will sit one on top of another. So you could kind of test this out, the overlap. So we want it to be 100% overlap so that the budget is sitting right behind the actual. Okay, so two series, one sits behind the other. All right, so again, you may not agree, but in my mind, already we are looking a lot like the thermometer. Both values are in one place and they're kind of there. The next step is we'll click on the outer one, the budget one, and then we will make it like a container. So a container would be like this, where it is blank inside, but there is a boundary around it. So we'll select this blue one, go to format, and then we'll say no fill color. But the outline needs to be, we'll match the outline with our actual value, which is that orange color. So we'll select the same color as this. And if you want, you can even adjust the weight. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like that. So we get that kind of a thing. So we'll get a nice outline around it. And the inner value is what my thermometer thing is. So this is that. If you want, you can even adjust the color and make it slightly dull. I'm not even going to bother with that. I'll just leave it like that. So now, theoretically, our thermometer is done. I mean, it is giving you what you want. It's not looking like a thermometer, but it is giving you what you want. So we'll test it out. We'll say 90. It kind of moves. But now there is a problem here, which is we would expect it to go all the way to 90%. But because the axis is not properly set, somehow Excel reset the axis minimum. So it's starting from 85. So I'm going to click this axis, Control-1 to format the axis. And you don't need to actually press Control-1. If this thing is already open, then you just pick whatever and it will open the format for that. So here we go to the axis options and then set the minimum boundary to 0. Again, this depends on the values, but let's just say our budget is always going to be 100 and actual will be the one that fluctuates. So we can also set the maximum to 100, but that step is not necessary. Minimum we do want to set. So now the 90 will kind of go all the way up, 45 halfway through, 65 like this. So the thermometer really works. It kind of goes up and down depending on what the actual value is. Let's just fill up some color here so we can kind of see which value is changing. So 75, 3/4 the way. All good. The next step is, this is good, but it doesn't really look like a thermometer. It looks like two columns that are somehow sitting one on top of another. Also, if you kind of get really pixel perfect, you'd think that, this outline is not showing through properly. I'll change the color so that you can actually see what I mean by this. So if I change the outline to, let's just change it to the black. Okay, that contrasts well. And if I zoom it all the way, you will see that, the outline is thicker out where there is no bar, but the moment this column is coming, it's kind of not showing through properly. So this is something that you may want to address. Like, ideally what I want to take this orange color thing and then push it behind instead of in front, so that this bar is always showing up and the color is kind of going up and down behind it. Again, these are just aesthetic, cosmetic things. If you don't bother, then you don't even have to do it. But you might be thinking, how do I make that happen? So we'll select anywhere, click on the chart, right click, and then go to select data. And then you will see that the data source for this chart is here. It has two series, budget and actual. Whatever is on the top, so in this case, budget is on the top, that is the layer that shows in the forefront of the chart. So budget is here, and then actual is coming behind that. So that's why budget sits on the top here. So if we click on the budget and use this arrow to push it down, then budget goes behind actual. And then when you click OK, now you can see that the outline is always showing and the color is kind of moving inside. So we'll get a different type of effect. Again, this may not be an issue if you picked a different type of thickness here, or you're not completely zoomed in, then that won't be the problem. Anyhow, the more important aspect is this is good, but it doesn't look anything like that. So that's the next step that we will try. So we set everything up. Now what we will do is we'll remove all the unnecessary bits. So we are only looking at only the thermometer aspect. So I'm going to delete my grid lines. I don't need my axis. I'll just delete that. Oops. And then we'll delete this axis as well. We don't even need the title, so I'll delete that. And then we'll select the actual portion of the chart. So this time the problem is, if I click, I'm always selecting the budget. There's no way for me to select the actual because budget is the first layer and then actual is behind. So every time I click, my click goes to the budget layer automatically. But you can kind of use the series options and then select the actual series from there. Whichever way you prefer, you pick that, and then you can add a data label. This kind of gives because especially if you are not 175, you're let's say 450 and 312, then we won't really know exactly how much that proportion is. So you may want to add a label somewhere, and that label I will just move it to the end, and we'll just color it like that. Then we'll pick this. We will switch back our color so that this is our thermometer, the top part. We don't have the bulb in the bottom, but this thing is done. And then you can kind of size it so that you will get a nice thermometer like this. The next step is, if you want this, I would normally stop here. I wouldn't even bother with the rest of the things. But if you really want to kind of get like a thermometer look and feel, all you have to do is select the chart, go to format, fill it with no color, and outline also no outline. So now what happens is that that container box around the chart is gone. We end up with a very simple kind of like the thermometer thing here. And this is pretty much it. And then what I could do is I could go to insert a shape of circle. So we are picking that shape, and then we'll draw a circle here. We can just position the circle, If you think this is too big, you can kind of size it a little bit, whatever way you want, and then just color match this to what we have there. And then we'll get something like that. You can then right click, send it to back. So we will get this. Maybe we'll need to do a little bit more with the colors and adjustment and all of that. And you can get even more creative and remove that little piece of arc there, or even get rid of the outline, and you would get a nice thermometer like this, which creates the illusion. This is all illusion. The actual chart is just there. But if I now adjust, I will get a nice looking thermometer like that. Okay, so this is our very, very first chart. Now, obviously, people, when I show them this particular part of chart, the most important question that people ask is, "Ooh, this is good, but what happens if my actual is more than budget?" Which is the case in most business situations, right? So 110, what's going to happen? Well, in this case, it's not even going to show 110, because remember, we set the access maximum to 100. So it'll just go all the way up to 100 and then show, even the value is 110, it's not even coming up on the screen. So this particular approach, we have not designed to cater to a scenario where the value could be more than actual. Okay, so I would not recommend using this method if you are trying to handle that kind of a thing. So that's number one. The second question that people ask is, this is good, but what happens if I have not a single budget, but an actual combination, but I'm doing this for 7 of my business groups. So I got 7 budgets and 7 actuals. How would I then make this? So that's the second question. So in that case, what you could do is you can extend this to do 7 different columns, each showing their budget and actual. So you basically have 7 thermometers. But then that may also have some additional complications depending on whether one of those values is going to be more than 100 and all. So that is, those are some of the things that you will need to think about, right? If you are going to have values that are either on either side of the budget, then my suggestion to you is, well, the whole point of teaching this technique is to obviously introduce you to this chart, but also to give you an idea that a lot of things that you see on the screen when you're making the charts, they're all very flexible. We don't think of them like that. We think, oh, column chart has only this look, bar chart has only that look, but there is a lot of flexibility built into them just by tweaking the options. So I thought, introduce them to you so that you could see that, oh, this I can customize, oh, this I could move around, this I could make it transparent to create an illusion of whatever else I want. So those are the key takeaways here, but hopefully you found something of value as well that you could apply. So now we will go into the sample data. But before I jump into that, if you have any questions, feel free to post them. I'll take 1 or 2 questions and then we will move on to the next topic. So Adam asks how to get the data label for actuals. The data label is there. I have put it, but because it's more than 100, it was not showing through. So this is because we moved the series around. So the budget is actually in the front and actual is behind. And what this is making is it makes it tricky for you to select the actual series, but it is there. So what you could do is you could use the format data series. You can pick any one. It doesn't matter what you pick. And from here, series options, there is a small down arrow next to it. You can click on that. And from this, you would be able to select actual. Okay. So now you have picked the actual series. Once you have highlighted that, you can use the plus button here to add data labels there. That will add the data label and that'll put that there. Okay, so yeah, so Megan asks, could you remind us how to remove the frame of the chart? So I'll show you with a blank chart. You can put any chart. And if you don't want the frame and you want the chart to be kind of see-through so that the values and the graph part shows up, but none of the, like there is no white box around it. So you pick the chart, go to format. And so you're now saying for this entire chart, shape fill should be no fill. So now it kind of becomes transparent. Whatever there is a value, it will come up, but anything else behind it will also show through. You could also obviously, fill up with some other color, do lots of interesting things, but this is how we remove that. Okay, so we will make a move. I'll come back for more questions, but meanwhile, in case when I'm explaining something, you see something that is strange or you want me to elaborate more, feel free to post a chat message there. I'm not going to read all the chat messages while I'm doing, but I will try to look there once in a while just to make sure that I'm not missing anything important. So feel free to put that there. But the next one that we will do is we'll take a look at something a little bit more. Not that this is not realistic, what we did, but this is too small, like only two values. But in most cases, when you are doing business reporting, chances are you would be doing reports and making graphs where the data is so much more than two values. So we're going to do that. We will use this data to do some variance analysis. So I'll copy this. And in fact, I think I already have it here, but in case you don't have a blank sheet, you could kind of make a copy paste into the blank sheet. So here I got this is a made up beauty company, and they sell eye related products, and we got some target and sales values. So we'll just imagine these are quantities, so they're just numbers, but you could also imagine them as dollars or containers, or whatever you want to imagine, you could imagine there. You don't even have to use these numbers. You could use anything in your line of work where you have some items and some values assigned to them. And they could be target and sales. They could be values that happened in November 2021 versus October 2021, anything for that matter. Again, when you have data like this, what sort of graphs you make and what you want to highlight depends a lot on what the intent is. So here we got a clear target and we are doing sales. So the intention here is to understand whether we are meeting the target or not. And if so, or if not, what sort of variance we have, and then present that in a clear graph. So that's the variance analysis is our focus, but I could pretty much use the same data to showcase some other type of meaning and some other type of insight as well. So we got these values. I'm just gonna print some borders around it so we can quickly read them and see what's what. So we got target and sales. We will see with respect to target, what is our current sales and how much is the variance with that. So variance, you could calculate variance by simply taking sales minus target. You could do it the other way around as well. So for example, here we are plus 160 variance, which means we sold 160 more than what our target says we should do. And you can kind of fill this down. You can see that in some places we are negative variance, so we didn't meet the target. In some other places we have positive variance. So this is my simple variance calculation. Again, fairly simple, straightforward arithmetic stuff. You already have a very good idea how to do all of these things. The first thing that I want to do is I want to visually present my performance and then showcase the variance as well in a graph. So we'll select the target and sales values along with the product and insert. And when you have data like this, for a variance analysis kind of thing, again, you could pick either a bar chart or a column chart. Not start off with a column chart because they're very straightforward, and you can kind of easily scale them up and down depending on how much data you have. They look kind of comically big on my screen because I'm at 200% zoom, but if I go all the way to 100%, that's how big the actual chart is on a normal screen on a normal day. Because I'm presenting, I made them big. So we'll kind of make it like maybe this big. So if I am resizing the charts and I want to place them and align them with the cell boundaries, instead of you taking a guess, you can hold down the Alt key. It's the key right next to spacebar, Alt key. And you can see that automatically as I move my mouse around, it will always try to line up with the cell boundary. So this is a very simple shortcut that you could use when you're working with graphs or visuals or pictures and resizing them. If you hold down the Alt key, it'll automatically snap. So this way you don't have to worry about alignment and things like that. You could use the Alt key when you're resizing or even when you're moving. Right now I'm moving it, and if I hold down the Alt key, notice what is happening. It will always try to adjust it to either the horizontal boundary or the vertical boundary of the cell. So this is a very, very easy way for me to make sure that the chart is kind of properly fit into that spreadsheet grid. And when you have multiple of them, having them all same size or uniformly aligned is very important. So here we got our target versus sales, kind of like our thermometer chart, but now we have two columns, and we didn't really want to go with thermometer model anymore because we do have positive and negative variance. So we need to think about what happens when it goes beyond the frame of thermometer. So instead, we will just use it like this. We've got target and sales, and there's chart title. We'll worry about the other bits in a minute, but for now, let's see if this itself is communicating the message and what needs to happen here to bring out that kind of a thing. So again, a lot depends on your personal favorites and all of that, but I'm just going to show a few techniques that I personally use to format these. For example, target and sales are together for the same product. So I find that there should not be any white space between them. They should be touching each other because they're together giving you one picture. So we can pick either one of them, go to the format. If this is closed, press Ctrl+1 to open it up. And there is a series overlap. We just set this to 0%, which will kind of make them touch each other. Remember, if I set it to 100%, then one will go on top of another. Negative 100% means there will be just as much gap in between them as they are wider. In this case, we'll just set this as 0, which means they're touching each other. Likewise, I feel like there is too much white space between things because the intention is to talk about the products and their performance. We want to give space for them rather than that white space there. So gap width is the one that you can mess with. If I set the gap width to 500%, I'll get more white space. If I set it to 0%, then everybody is touching everyone else, like on a metro train. So we will set this to maybe 50%. That if you feel like, this is too busy and congested, you could go up to 100%. What is really funny is if you make a chart, by default, Excel picks the gap width of this 219%. So I don't know where they are getting these numbers from, but definitely this is like too much white space for my liking. So we'll start off with maybe 50 or 100, whatever you find reasonable, and then tweak it depending on your taste and your messaging that you want to go with. The next thing is I want to be able to kind of set the focus on either the target or the sales side of things. So let's say sales is the real thing, target is what we agreed upon at the start of the financial year, but sales is what is really happening, right? So the focus should be on the sales. So in this case, the color of the sales need to come through, and then the color of target kind of needs to fade in. So we could kind of change this to bring out that message. So for example, I'm just gonna stick with the orange color thing because we have already used it that earlier here. So we'll stick with that. We'll pick the target values, the blue ones, and then go to format and pick a duller shade of orange, or if you want, you can use green. I'm just gonna use that. So this will kind of naturally, when you look at this, your eye will go to the stronger color and then use that. If you think this is also not coming through well, you could try a few other things. I'm not even going to bother. I'll just leave that there. We will come back and handle some of these other things like the grid lines and the axis density and all of that. But this is only telling us what is happening with respect to target and sales. We would like to emphasize how big the gap is between these two, because that's what variance is. So for example, here, my variance is very high in the negative direction, and here it is a very high in the positive direction. And I want to bring that to the attention. So we'll keep that there. We will again select the product, hold down Control, select the variance column. So we pick both product and variance and insert another column chart for the variance side of things. Okay, so then I'm just gonna move this, holding down my Alt key so that it lines up like that. I'll delete the title. We don't need the title there. And this is how the variance is with respect to each of the products. Okay. If I delete this axis also, we could kind of see the variance side of things presented here. Now, these are two different graphs, but they're all together presenting that one picture. So now let's go and kind of make it all look like one graph where I'm talking about what is my actual target value and then what is the variance. So we'll start off with the variance guy here. We'll select this. First step, we will reduce the gap. There is too much white space. So because there is only one series, you don't really need to use the series overlap. It's not going to change anything. The series overlap will only apply if you have more than one series. So it doesn't matter what that value is, but the gap width will change the size of that column. So I'm going to set this to 50%. And now these columns are nice and thick. And at this point, we could then pick this. And what I want to do is I want to bring to the attention wherever the variance is positive. Likewise, wherever the variance is negative, I want to bring both of them to attention. So here, everything is blue color. Of course, the direction will tell us that, which way the variance is going. But we would also want to kind of conditionally color them so that positive variance is in maybe blue color, negative variance is in red color. So we can select these things and then we can go to the fill color options. I'll bring this here so you can see. When you have a column chart or a bar chart, the coloring is usually by default whatever Excel picks, but also you can also change it to solid fill and then kind of change the color to green or black or whatever you want, and that will apply. But there is another option here that you might not have noticed, which is called invert if negative. So we're going to use that. We'll start off with the green color and then click on invert if negative. And now you get two colors, one for positive, one for negative. So the negative one, I'm going to just set this to that color. So here, all my positive variances are in green, which means we sold more than our target, which is good. So we'll go with green. And negative variances will be in that yellow color, so that they will also show up. And it's easy for me to spot that. Okay. So now that setup is done, we could then go and kind of bring both of them together into one picture so that everything reads like one visual rather than two individual visuals. So we'll start by taking this legend and then instead of bottom, we'll put it right on the top. That way the reading will be title, legend, and then entire message. Because right now, if I want to know the colors, I'll have to go all over the place. So we'll move it to there. And then we'll start off with by moving the title. And maybe this can go here. We'll need to figure out what this title needs to be. We'll start off with something very simple. And then if you want, you can improvise and write more complex sentences here. But I'm just going to say product sales review. And then if you want, you can add some additional bits like November 2021. Okay. Let's just stop at product sales review for now. We will, and then if you want the title to stand out, you could also apply some special effects like bold or whatever. And that'll be that. And this is where if the focus needs to be more on the variance, then I would make this bottom graph bigger. Whereas if the focus needs to be more on the sales side of things, then we will kind of make that one slightly bigger. So depends on what your messaging is. For now, we'll just agree that this kind of ratio is reasonable enough. So we will leave it there. And in the next step is you could take a call on whether to leave the axis on and the grid lines on, or take away both of them and instead use data labels to specify the values. Again, up to you. I find like, axis and grid lines combination is reasonable enough. We don't have too many values and it's fine. But the density is not something that I'm happy with. There's too many labels here. So I'll select the axis and I'll set the major unit to 250 so that there is fewer numbers repeated and it doesn't look that busy. We'll also adjust the color for that. Same for these lines. I'm just going to make them for the webinar, I'll leave it like that. But if I'm presenting on the screen, I'd make them even a little duller. This one, we can probably, again, use 200 okay. So this is that. If you want, you can even add horizontal, like vertical grid lines so that it becomes easy to read all of them together. But this is fine. We don't have that many values, so it's not super confusing there. And now I got my two graphs, but they're still two individual graphs. So the next step is we'll select the top one here. We'll go to format using the same trick as earlier. I'm just going to say, instead of no fill, we'll just fill up with some sort of dull color like that, and then take out the outline. And then we will repeat that process for this guy as well, so that we'll get background color on all of them, but there is no boundary. So everything looks like one big box. At this point, we could call it off, but if you want, you can go one more step. So I'll show you a few other things that I normally do, which is we could add a big shape outside on all of these. So again, holding down the Alt key makes them properly aligned like that. And then this one will have no fill so that there is a proper outline around all of this together through the box shape that you're drawing. If you want, you can get creative with this and make them rounded rectangles and whatnot. Then you'll have to figure out what to do with the background. And then once all of this is done, the next step is we'll click on the box, hold down Control, click on the graph 1 and graph 2. So all of these are selected, right click, and then group them as one object. What this will do is if I'm moving around, I won't accidentally move a single chart. I will move the entire object together, which is a collection of two graphs and one of those boxes, so that it is kind of like one together unit. I could then copy it and put it in my presentation or in my email, whatever I want, I could do that. Works beautifully. If you want, you could even add these kind of variance by either absolute values, which is what we have done here, or we could kind of add a variance percentage which is nothing but this variance divided by target value. So with respect to target, we have 20% variance, 84, negative 38. So even though these two numbers are same on both directions, one of them has very high positive variance, one of them has a low negative variance. So that will change the meaning and intention because the targets are not same. So sometimes people also use this method, especially when the targets are all over the place, like in this case. So if you want, you could do that and then make a similar graph, but with the variance percentages. So either of those methods will work. Because it's not too much to do the variance percentage, I'm not going to show that. But this is another way in which we could use the simple options that are available, which is invert if negative type of a thing, combine things, group them, move them around, and create a different type of graph. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Otherwise, I'll move to our topic number 3. Okay, I don't see any questions, so I'm assuming everybody's good with what we are discussing so far, which is excellent. So we will name this as variance chart. And I'm just going to open up because I provided you 2 files. One is this blank file. The other one is a completed file so that I can connect the dots between that and this. So in this file, I have shown 5 different graphs. The intention is to cover some, if not all of them, today and tomorrow. So number 1 is what you have seen now, the variance chart. Here I'm using a slightly different type of color scheme, but essentially same ideas, same data, same ideas. Colors are different, and I have applied some different type of format for them, dotted line and things like that, just so you know that's there. But that's pretty much it. And added a few more kind of like additional visual elements to show this. So I might as well just talk a little bit about how to bring in some of those things. They're not real things. They're just icons that you're bringing. They're not tied to your data. So if you want, you could kind of add a small image or an icon here to indicate what is what. So this is my sales part of the graph, and this is my variance part of the graph. I'll briefly ungroup this so we could kind of add that. So you can go to insert. If you're using Office 365, they have got this excellent icon feature through which you can get some amazing free icons that you can then add on to your thing. So for sales, we could use a shopping cart kind of thing, that one. And then for variance, I could use something like this. So we get 2 icons, and I could just place them on the relevant portion of the graph. The icons will come in the dark black color, but they can be colored. You can just select them and you can apply any color. So I'm just gonna go with our orange color there. And this one, we will just, we'll just leave it like that. So we get 2 things there. If you want, you can get more creative with this. So this is what I've done here. I put a circle behind it and to kind of contain it and all of that. And I put a circle here that has 2 color gradient so that you have green and orange. But then there is really no extra value in learning how to format these things. You can all figure it out. And most of the time, how I format will be different from how you will format. But that's, you could add more things like that, and you can together group all of these so they will still be one object when you're moving or copying or sharing that information. So that is the variance chart. And then we got other charts here as well. So all of them derived from the same data, so that you can kind of see how same values can be represented differently depending on what the situation is. So here is a year-on-year changes chart. So that's what we will do next. And then tomorrow when we catch up again, I will talk about how to do the remaining 3 months. So we got variance chart, and then we will now go and do the year-on-year changes. So for this, I'm going to copy this data. It's exactly same numbers where it says target and sales. I changed the values from that to November 20 to November 2021. So we have, again, same products, but now the values that we have are what happened last year, November, and what is happening this year, November. And the intention here is now to compare 1 year ago data to now, to showcase like how things have changed. So when you are doing something like this, it's not necessary to show both values, because the focus is on the now rather than what happened a year ago or 3 years ago. So we would rather just show what is happening now, and then throw a light on what happened back in November 2020, and how things have changed from there on in the graph. So that's what we will do. We will select this, hold down Control, select that. We don't need the November 20 for this. And insert again, we will go with the column chart. That's pretty weird why it is treating everything differently. So here you can see what is happening. Excel, for some reason, thinks each product is a different series. So it's making different colors, but I could use switch row and column option to switch it back to one color, because they're all same. We are looking at November values. So everything should be in the same color. And let me just zoom down this a bit. Hopefully that'll work. Yeah. So we get that. And now on each of them, so here my eye patch is 950, and I want to see how good this 950 is in relation to what happened last year. So we will calculate percentage change from last year to now as a value here. This is equal to, this is a very, again, very simple formula, current value divided by previous value minus 1. So we'll get a percentage change. And you can just apply that and you'll get that. So this is 950. And then what I want to say here is 950 up 20%. That means it's changed 20% from last year. So that's the label that we want to see on there. So we have that. And now we will just select, let's just put some borders around all of these guys. And we will quickly apply some formatting, not so much gap. So 100% should be fine. And then we'll just delete that. That's not necessary. We'll select these and take away that. Maybe you need to make it a little big so we could read everything. Adjust this. So these are the steps that we have done previously. So I'm not explaining what I'm doing. I'm just tweaking some of the access settings and stuff like that to, we'll move that there. We will figure out what to say on the title in a minute. But for now, the graph is ready. Many times when you're doing these kind of steps, you might be kind of doing the same steps over and over. So one alternative is, instead of you doing this every time, you could also, I'll show this from scratch. If I select this and this and insert a graph, so I get this graph, but I want to I want to be able to kind of replicate all of that. Well, not all of that, but I wanted to kind of quickly clean it up and make it look in a different way. One option is you could use chart design, chart styles. There's some very good chart styles that Microsoft Excel comes pre-packaged with. So you could pick one of these and you could be done with. You don't have to format everything by your own. You could use that. So for example, I could use this chart style. I feel like, this looks good enough. The gap is fine. There are some unnecessary elements, but I do have what I need in a much quicker time than manually doing all of that. So this is a simpler alternative. I'll show you another technique as well. Imagine, we'll move this down for a second. Imagine you made that, but now your boss says, can I get a similar graph for November 20? So you will insert the graph, and I'm wondering why it keeps insisting on these colors, different colors for everything. Anyhow, so we do it like this, but now I need to kind of apply this style of formatting here as well. For fun, we'll change the color as well. So this style of formatting needs to go here. So what you could do is you can select the original chart, Control C, copy it, select this chart, and here is a secret menu that Excel has that won't show up on any of the top things, but you could trigger it. So you select the original one, Control C to copy it, select the final one, and then press Alt E, E for edit, let go of your keyboard, and then now press S. This opens a paste special box that is specific for charts. And from here, I say that I want the formatting of this chart copied over here. So we'll just say formats. And now that formatting kind of gets inherited. The size will stay the same. Data will also be from November 20. But what's now happening is this is actually applying the same format. So you can see that our axis is 250. Our title has moved to the left. Colors have changed. Everything is properly formatted. So two techniques. One is to use the design option to make a pre-built design. Another is to do the formatting once and then use the format painter option to kind of copy paste the formatting. We don't really need that. And even for that matter, I find like, we will use the design one because it looks a little bit more polished and interesting. So here we got my graph, and now I want to show the change information as a label. So if I select this and add label, I'll get my values as labels, 950, 790. Those are my values. So that's what I get as a label. But you can select the labels and you can go to label options. In there, you have value from cells as a choice. So if you select that, you'll get this thing, which asks, so which cells you want to bring the value? The value that I want is here. So I'll select these things. And now I get 20%, 950. Let's just say we want only the 20% bit. So we'll select, uncheck the value. So I'll get my original value. And then what is the variance as a label right on the top. So this creates a different type of storytelling thing for you. While it does create, it's not really immediately telling what is happening, and it might even be confusing, like why the label is negative 38% when clearly the column is as tall as this guy. So we'll have to work on that. So this is what we will do. We'll move this a little bit here, and we will generate a label that is a bit more meaningful. So the label would be, we need two symbols, an up arrow symbol and a down arrow symbol. This bit feels a little confusing, but when you see the whole thing done, then you will be like, okay, it makes sense. So we'll understand that. So we need to get two symbols. You can insert the symbol in a couple of different ways. You can go to insert, click on symbol, and from here you can kind of insert. But I'll show you a simpler alternative, which is select the cell, Windows and the dot key, your dot or period key together. So you need to hold down the Windows key and the dot key together. And this opens up the emoji keypad on your keyboard through which I can select either emojis or whatever. I'm not going to use emoji because they, well, they look good. They're probably a little too unbusiness-like, maybe some situations. So if I go to the symbol keypad, from here I can pick the symbol. So I'm going to select the up arrow symbol and the down arrow symbol. So two symbols I've copied. This way, we have the symbols there. I can select them, Control C. And now here we'll use the if formula. If the change is greater than 0, then I want up arrow symbol along with the change. Okay, we'll worry about that later. Else I want the down arrow symbol. And then once the symbol is there, then I want to concatenate it with the percentage change. So you understand the construction here, but you're not even sure where we are going. But all of that will make sense in a minute. But for now, we'll get something like this. We thought it's going to say up 20%, down 38%, but this is how the values will be, because technically the cell value is not 20%, it is 0.2025, whatever. So I'm just going to edit this, and where it says E4, we can use the text function. So text of that in 0% format, so that this will read like that. This is good, but here we have double negative. So we will take E4 and make it absolute. So that we are only just seeing the absolute value of the variance and then combining that with the up or down symbol. So we'll generate a label like this. It might seem a bit confusing, like why we're doing all of this. But as I said, once the label is generated, I can select these, go to select from range and map them to this instead of that. And we'll get this kind of a symbol there. So now it becomes more readable because we're not really thinking 20% as the value of the bar. We are seeing up 20%. So it naturally makes sense that this value has gone up by 20%. So now if I combine that with my title, so for example, if my title is not November 21, but it is our sales in November 2021 compared to last year, and then we'll just have to by adding a title that is a bit more meaningful, like our sales in November 2021 compared to last year. Together with that and this, it all makes sense and the chart becomes so much more friendly. But because everything is driven through the formulas, if the values were to change, so for example, November 21, the sales are not 950, they're 1050. It will automatically readjust and it will calculate the correct variance and then print that there. So it creates such a very compelling story without having to show all the individual numbers. So again, you can notice that same numbers, we are calling them say target and sales, but we created two different graphs, each producing a different type of output. So there you go. I hope you found these techniques useful. I'll see if you have any questions, and if not, then we will figure out what to do in the next 5 minutes. So I pasted some of the formulas in the chat in case you are having difficulty replicating the logic. But because you're not going to be using these numbers for analysis, you will be having something else in your situation. I want you to focus more on the technique side of it. And there is other file that has actual logic and everything already written there. So you can use that as well. Okay. So there seems to be some questions on the labels. So I'll show you how the labels formula is working again. This part is clear, like we calculated percentage change and applied formatting. In order to get the label, we need to actually have up, down, and then followed with that. So I'll break it down like this. If my value is greater than 0, that means we moved up compared to last year. Let's just make this nice and big so you can read it. If this is greater than 0, then essentially we want to say up, but not the word up, but we want to print the arrow there. Else we want to say down, followed by the actual value. Okay, so it would be, we think it will say up and then 33%, but it is saying up 0.3291. So we will need to take the E4 and then first convert that into a 0% formatted text. So this is where the text function will come in. Text of that within double quotes 0%. If I say it like that, then it will take the E4 value and then convert that into a percentage text. So we get up 33, down like that. Now, when I'm saying down negative 38 kind of sounds like a double negative. So it doesn't even make logical sense. You don't say we are down by negative 38%. We say down by 38%. So we don't need that signage there. So we will have to take the absolute value of E4 and then use it there. So it becomes like this. Now we didn't even need the words up and down there. We want to use a symbol that kind of connotes that. So to get the symbols, you have two choices. One is you can go to insert and click on symbol. And from here, you can use normal text and then kind of scroll through these values. There will be symbols there somewhere, but this is very tedious. So the other option is select a cell. You don't even need to do that. You can directly put it in the formula, but I'll show it in the cell and then hold on Windows and the dot key together. This opens up a emoji keypad through which I can insert emoji, smileys, and symbols into my keyboard. This is very useful for adding currencies as well, but we'll use the arrow option to pick the arrows that we want. If you scroll down, you will find an up arrow and a down arrow. Okay, there's quite a few interesting symbols here, so you may want to try them out. Like this and that are also good. There is even a up arrow and a down arrow, like an arrow symbol as well. So whatever works you could use. I'm just going to use the first two. And once these symbols are there, we will copy them to the clipboard, Control C, go to the formula where it says up, paste the up arrow, where it says down, paste the down arrow bit. And once these are there, we can easily link them to the chart. This chart already has it, so I'm just going to show it on this chart. We'll select this chart, add data labels. So we get the original data labels. Pick the labels, go to format options. And from here, the very first one is value from cells. So we'll select that and then point to these cells. So this will have both the up arrow thingy as well as the original value. Now we will turn off the value part, so only that one shows up. And our chart is now done. So this is the label setup once again. In the example file that I gave you, this one, you'll see all of that is done there. So feel free to check that out and use it. Okay, so this color of things is very, I applied red color there because I thought it will be hard to see the blue ones, black color. You can change the color. The next question is, some people were asking, how do you copy paste the formatting of the charts? So we'll try that as well. I don't want to do it with this because this is not going to work properly. But yeah, we'll just try it. So we'll insert a graph. In this graph here, we want to turn it like that. So we'll select the first one, Control C, copy it, select the second one, and then press Alt E. So the key is Alt and E together. Let go of your keyboard and then press S. S for save. So Alt ES, that's the sequence. And I'll open up the paste special box through which I can copy the formats. So it copies the format, but in this case, it also copied the label setting. So November 20 also is up by 33%. This is incorrect, but you understand the logic there. So that's that. So I'll just say Alt E followed by yes. So the format copy thing is not going to work exactly like your way you want, because certain things may be specific to a chart and they may not be copied over exactly when you have another type of chart. So if not everything is getting copied over, it simply means Excel cannot copy your other chart for that specific thing. Like for example, if I have if I make a pie chart with this, it's a meaningless pie chart, but let's just say this is the pie chart. And now I Control C, Alt ES. Sometimes it will try to even change the chart format. Certain other times it may not even do, because you may have done something else in this chart that Excel has no clue what to do with that. So yeah, certain times it wouldn't work. Not even sure if we could use that. That might be even faster. Sometimes. Yeah, so no, that's not working. Okay, any other questions? Do you want to maybe share a little bit about some of the things that you do in your work with respect to data visualization, and your thoughts or your anything that you struggle with? That might be something that I could talk a little bit more. So to add the labels, you select the graph, click on the plus, and then just say data labels. Alternatively, you can select the series and then say data label. And then from there, use the options within data labels to customize them. So Lynn asks, how do you color the arrows in the chart? So the color will be default color, which is black or dark color, but you can change, you can select that and you can kind of color them in blue or like that. This is fine. If you want to get a bit more creative, and kind of show the up arrow ones in green color and down arrow ones in red color. You could also do that. It requires a little bit more wrestling in the back end here, because if you notice, we got only one label. So there is only one color per label. So all the labels will be either green, all the labels will be either black or red, whatever one color. But hypothetically, if you can have two labels, one is a red label and one is a green label, and red label will only have a value in it if the value is going down, and green vice versa. So if you could set up something like that, then you could use that logic to trigger different colors per label based on their value. It's up to you if you want to do it, because we have already encoded the fact that things have gone up or down with that arrow symbol. So there is no additional visual benefit of having a different color there. It's just going to add noise to the graph. Whereas in certain other places, maybe you want to show. So it's up to you. You can figure it out in the example file, I believe. So in the example file, there is another graph here where, if you notice, there is a box that shows overall sales as well. So not only individual level, but at an overall level, we are up 12% compared to last year. And this is a smarter one. I have the working here, but I'm not going to go into the detail because it gets a little more specific. But notice what happens if I bring down our November 21 sales so that they go down in comparison to November 20 sales at an overall level. So if I say this is 300, so now we are down by 13% at an annual level. This arrow changes to red color. Okay, it's not a green up arrow, it's a red down arrow now. Whereas if I undo, you'll see that is in a green color. So this is done through that logic. So I got two arrows, green arrow and red arrow. And then one of them is enabled, one of them is disabled through formulas, and then they all show up here. So this file is also the one, it is there in your workbooks, two files you're getting, right? The 5 charts and 5 charts blank. So you have access to this file. I recommend that you spend a little bit of time, play around with these things, and then see which ideas you can copy over to your workbook.
Perfect. So I think, Chandoo, if we don't have any more questions, I think what we can do is pick up with the remaining charts during tomorrow's workshop.
Yes. Yeah.
And so for now, then we can move over to the CPE and CPD polling questions, and then just do a quick little wrap up.
Sounds good. Shall I stop my screen share?
Sure. Okay. So with that being our final polling question, that's going to bring an end to today's workshops. I want to thank everybody here for joining us, and also a big thank you to Chandoo for walking us through those Excel charts today. And again, we hope to see you here tomorrow for the second day of the workshops, where we're going to pick up on where we left off. And if you're at all interested in continuing your learning, I encourage you to check out all the great talks and events we have at plantogrow.com. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about Vena's complete planning solution, head on over to venasolutions.com. Thanks again for joining me. Take care, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you, Zach, and see you all tomorrow.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.